Do you like live television? I love it. I think it is probably the most terrifying medium in the world. I can't tell you how often when they say 30 seconds to air, I think to myself, oh.
Behind the sparkle and spells of Bewitched lies a secret moment that quietly ended an era, one that few fans truly understand. What was it that made this beloved show suddenly vanish from our screens, leaving audiences puzzled and longing for more? This mystery is just one of 40 intriguing stories packed with hidden truths, surprising twists, and little-known facts about the show's final curtain. From behind-the-scenes dramas to clever illusions, these revelations paint a fascinating picture of what really happened. Curious about the real reason why Bewitched went off the air? The answer might just surprise you. The illusion behind Samantha Knows. One of the most memorable and magical gestures in Bewitched was Samantha's iconic nose wiggle, a signature move that fans instantly recognize. But surprisingly, Elizabeth Montgomery never actually wiggled her nose. Erin Murphy, who played Samantha's daughter Tabitha, revealed that the illusion was created by Montgomery subtly moving her upper lip. This clever trick made it appear as though her nose was twitching, even though human noses lack the muscles needed to wiggle the way it seemed on screen. The effect was a perfect blend of skillful acting and camera magic, fooling viewers into believing in Samantha's enchanting powers. In contrast, the exacting direction given by Montgomery and the filmmaking techniques used in the show provided Samantha's charm without special effects. While watching the show, viewers would remember Samantha casting her spells through nose twitches. In fact, things were way different, as it was her sly, crafty wit that did all the work. This detail showcases the clever balance of fantasy and reality. Bewitched achieved magic proof that often it is in slight touches and entirely unanticipated places where profound enchantment can be found. If Samantha's famous nose wiggle caught your attention, wait until you hear about the spin-off that didn't quite capture the magic. Tabitha's spin-off. After Bewitched ended, the story of Samantha and Darren's daughter continued with the spin-off series Tabitha, which followed her as an adult trying to find her place in the world. However, the original actress who played young Tabitha, Erin Murphy, was not part of this new show. Instead, Lisa Hartman Black took over the role, bringing her own style to the character. While Tabitha aimed to carry on the magical legacy of Bewitched, it struggled to capture the same charm and appeal that had made the original series so beloved. The original show's fans were yearning so much for the warmth and magic that they remembered from before. But Tabitha never quite measured up. There was some intent behind it, but the same couldn't be said for the audience who attuned to it as they did with the original Bewitched, underscoring the difficulty of carrying on with something so special when almost every single part is absent from the original cast and the magic. Nevertheless, this chapter continues to be interesting in the entire Bewitched saga that shows how the tale of Samantha and her family lives beyond the original 8 seasons. Why Bewitched ended early? Though Bewitched was a popular show that enjoyed 8 successful seasons, it ended sooner than many fans expected. The real reason behind the early conclusion wasn't a drop in ratings or network disinterest. Bewitched had actually been renewed for 2 more seasons. The decision to end the show came largely from Elizabeth Montgomery, who played Samantha. Around that time, Montgomery's marriage to the show's producer Bill Asher was falling apart, and she felt ready to move on from the role that had defined much of her career. Although the network tried to keep the magic alive, Montgomery's decision to leave sealed the fate of the beloved show. This behind-the-scenes decision outshone all other rumors about the show's abrupt end, such as cast changes or creative differences. Thus, It stands as one of the most important and poignant moments in television history, ending a groundbreaking show that combined humor, fantasy, and family life in a way unmatched by most in its history. Movies that sparked Bewitched's magic. Bewitched didn't just appear out of thin air. Its magical beginnings were inspired by two classic films, I Married a Witch and Belle, Book and Candle. Creator Saul Sachs blended elements from these movies to craft the unique premise of a witch living a suburban life, mixing romance and fantasy in a way that felt fresh for television audiences. By drawing from these familiar stories, Sachs gave Bewitched a solid foundation rooted in cinematic magic, helping the show capture viewers' imaginations right from the start. Another smoothing factor was that both films belonged to Columbia Pictures, the same studio that produced Bewitched. This neat tie made it easier for the producers to borrow from the themes and ideas without worrying about any legal hassles in putting forth their present classic. These movies might be heard throughout the delightful tone and charming storylines in the show, proving just how much movie inspiration had helped conjure some of the magic of Bewitched. The Almost Darren. Before Dick York became the beloved Darren Stevens on Bewitched, another actor, Dick Sargent, was very close to landing the role. During the early casting days, Sargent was in the running, while producers were still searching for the perfect Samantha. However, he accepted a different job, missing his chance to play Darren. This what-if moment leaves fans wondering how the show might have changed if Sargent had taken the part instead of York. Eventually, after Dick York's health had obliged him to walk off the show, Sargent would return and play Darren Stevens. Audiences would have to adapt to the new actor through the distance that Sargent would bring into the role. Fantastic casting adds to the complexity of this series and becomes a part of the challenges Bewitched confronted in-work suspension in its subsequent seasons. Elizabeth Montgomery's multiple characters. Elizabeth Montgomery showcased remarkable versatility on Bewitched by playing not just Samantha, but several other memorable characters as well. Among these was Samantha's mischievous cousin Serena, who often stirred up trouble with her own brand of magic. Interestingly, Montgomery was even credited under the playful pseudonym Pandora Spox when portraying Serena, adding a fun layer to her performances. This ability to step into multiple roles with distinct looks and personalities added depth and variety to the show, keeping it fresh and engaging for viewers. Montgomery often blurred the line between being an actress playing a character and being a guest star acting as herself in episodes. Her ability to differentiate among these characters showcased her range and contributed to the dynamism of the series. This complex performance, respecting Montgomery's craft, enriched the Bewitched universe and, in its broad scope, allowed fans to enjoy a glimpse of her charm and creativity. The actor who stepped in. After Dick Sargent declined the role of Darren Stevens, it was Richard Crenna who was next considered for the part. However, following his work on The Real McCoys, Crenna also decided not to take the role, leaving the door open for another actor. This paved the way for Dick York to step in and become the Darren that audiences came to know and love. York's portrayal helped define the character and quickly won over viewers with his charm and chemistry alongside Elizabeth Montgomery. York, despite becoming the ultimate Darren, was forced to withdraw from the series on account of health issues, which permitted a brief Sargent return as his substitute. The casting changes posed challenges regarding the dynamics of the show, but pointed out the unique contributions each actor gave to the part. York's original performance is emblazoned in our minds, while the back-and-forth casting story unveils just how close the series was to having very different portrayals of its adored leading man. Dick York's painful exit revealed. Dick York's departure from Bewitched was shrouded in mystery for many years, but the true reasons behind his exit eventually came to light. During filming, York suffered a severe back injury that tore muscles on the right side of his back, causing him intense and chronic pain. To manage this, he was prescribed pain medication, which unfortunately led to a long-term addiction. These health struggles deeply affected his ability to perform and kept worsening over time. The situation found itself at a breaking point when York suffered a seizure on set after reacting to a B12 injection, thus forcing him to leave the series forever. His sad departure meant a big loss for the show, for York's character, Darren, had endeared himself to fans. A new Darren joins Bewitched. When Dick York's health forced him to step off set during the series' 5th season, Dick Sargent was brought in to fill the role of Darren Stevens. This abrupt change for fans had been quite an adjustment since they had become fond of York's portrayal. However, Sargent added his own flair and warmth to the character. While the series continued with Sargent at its helm, this transition meant a difficult time to get audiences to accept the new Darren while trying to maintain the show's previous magic amid the change. Elizabeth Montgomery's pregnancies on screen. Elizabeth Montgomery had 3 pregnancies during her run on Bewitched, and, uniquely for the time, the show folded 2 of them into the storyline with the arrival of Samantha and Darren's children, Tabitha and Adam. Instead of using camera tricks or wardrobe adjustments of the expectant star, the producers chose to incorporate the real-life happenings into the family dynamic on-screen. This not only added realness to the tale, but also allowed audiences to watch a more relatable and developing side of Samantha and Darren as parents, extending the series beyond its magic. As the family expanded on screen, a quiet but powerful charm quietly captured viewers' hearts. Dick York's endearing charm as Darren. He was charming with warmth, and his special magic did one's view of Dick York into fans' view that made Bewitched warm. He was the mortal husband, and his performance attained a highly prized middle ground of skepticism and affection that brought home the character's appositeness and created differences in his popularity. He didn't work on too many projects after the series due to his health problems. His portrayal is iconic, and a lot of the audience still relates to him as the definitive Darren. Alice's posthumous Emmy honor. Alice Pierce, actress and producer, died 2 months before being awarded the Emmy posthumously for her role as the nosy neighbor Gladys Kravitz in Bewitched as an outstanding supporting actress. It was quite unusual because Pierce had managed to keep the word of her illness from the cast and producers. Thus, her death came as a surprise to everyone associated with the show. The Emmy win was an acknowledgement of her unforgettable and endearing performance, and the role remained indelibly associated with her as a major part of the series, despite her early demise in the life of the show. Costumes on a budget. 1960s TV couldn't spare a dime, meaning even a hit show like Bewitched had to curtail expenses on everything from production design to costumes. Most of the time, members of the band patiently brought their own additions to the wardrobe of their characters, thus imprinting their own personalities on defining them. Costumes and props reused for various shows became a financially sound but very creative way of approaching work. Not only was it economical, but it also allowed the cast to create subtle and memorable differences for their own characters. Moorehead's treasured brooch. Endora on Bewitched was played by Agnes Moorehead, who frequently sported the spectacular 8.5-carat starburst brooch set with old mine diamonds. This cherished frost was warmly admired by her friend and co-star Elizabeth Montgomery. Upon Moorehead's death in 1974, she bequeathed the dear brooch to Montgomery in a gesture that poignantly symbolized the strong companionship the two actresses shared both on and off the screen. Friendships on Bewitched. In spite of on-screen drama and cast alterations, behind-the-scenes real friendships were formed during Bewitched. Agnes Moorehead's loyalty to her co-star was shown by her not wanting to see Dick York leave the show, even with his problems with addiction. Elizabeth Montgomery and Dick Sargent became lifelong friends and continued to be there for each other throughout the difficult times of the show's life. The links shared among the cast off camera kept up the spirit on set, an indication that they really were a close-knit group outside of their roles. Cold Shoulder. Agnes Moorehead, who greatly admired Dick York's work, is said to have been upset when Dick Sargent stepped in for York as Darren Stevens. Although they fought a lot on set, these conflicts somehow turned into a great, long-lasting friendship between Moorehead and Sargent. Their standing by each other in tough times through the Bewitched cast a friendship that was stronger than the trials of production, showing that sometimes cold shoulders lead to unexpected camaraderie. Aunt Clara's doorknob obsession. Aunt Clara, the lovable but forgetful character on Bewitched, draws inspiration from Lorne's lifelong obsession with doorknobs. Lorne had an extensive collection of more than 1,000 antique doorknobs, which was a delightful, odd passion that found its way into her character's love of them. While odd, collecting antique doorknobs is a hobby subculture that some find valuable and beautiful in its own right. This personal hobby certainly added an element of charm and authenticity to Aunt Clara and helped endear her more to fans. A tragic tribute. In the series Bewitched, Larry Tate and his wife Louise have an adorable son named Jonathan, the name that actor David White, who played Larry, had particularly asked for. The actor wanted the character to be named after his son Jonathan, whom he raised single-handedly after losing his wife during her second pregnancy. Sadly, the actor's real son, Jonathan, was one of the victims in the Pan Am Flight 103 bombing over Lockerbie, Scotland, in 1988. David White died 2 years after that due to a heart attack and is buried with his son at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. It's a really touching and tragic tale behind the unreal family of the show. Tragedy over the airwaves. The stars kept up all their bittersweet episodes with personal tragedies and misfortunes after the end of Bewitched. Unfortunately, this cast a shadow over the series' legacy. Some horrifying events occurred on set during the filming. Some of these were particularly shocking to the cast and crew. For example, there was a break in an episode called I Confess, an interruption that was made to announce the shooting of Martin Luther King Jr. This real and on-screen tragedy lent heaviness to the very personal history of this beloved show. Tabitha's post-Bewitched life. The character of Tabitha continued after the series. Bewitched, young actress Erin Murphy, who played the Tabitha role, appeared in many commercials, swimwear modeling, and auditioned for roles opposite stars like Helen Hunt and Jodie Foster. Eventually, her family moved to Orange County so that she could have more normal teenage experiences, even becoming homecoming queen. Murphy has gone on to have a varied non-acting career, proving there is much more to the story of Tabitha outside the magical world of Bewitched. Tabitha's story lives on, so does the secret behind the magic. Tricks before CGI. Lesser-known practical tricks were applied in the making of Bewitched. Elizabeth Montgomery would stand totally still with her arms raised until the director yelled, "Cut!" at which point stagehands would rush in and remove all the junk or props to create the illusion of Samantha working her magic in an instant. By today's standards, these effects could hardly be called high-tech, but that suite of very fast and very cheap tricks did the job effectively to create the illusion that Samantha had real powers and to enchant the viewers in the process without the use of costly special effects. Elizabeth Montgomery's exit. Although Bewitched was at the height of its popularity and renewed for many more seasons, the show came to a quiet end, for the most part, due to the wishes of its star, Elizabeth Montgomery, to leave the show. Just before the series began, Montgomery had thought about retiring from acting altogether, but her husband and producer Bill Asher talked her into accepting the role. After 8 seasons, Montgomery felt ready to move on, and her decision lined up with the breakup of her marriage to Asher. Although the network wanted to keep it going, Montgomery's choice to step away brought that beloved series to an end in 1972. Sense of humor. Erin Murphy, who was Tabitha on Bewitched, once looked back upon the off-screen personality of Elizabeth Montgomery. If anything, Montgomery was anti-Pollyanna. She had a great sense of humor, could romp around, and truly did not mind looking silly. Murphy also compared her to Lucille Ball. Elizabeth always seemed to do campy and funny without giving it a thought. That teasing attitude made Montgomery's Samantha not only mesmerizing, but also a plain good time for all of us. Samantha's unorthodox arm workouts. Bewitched was being taped before the advent of CGI, requiring Montgomery to hold her arms in the same position for long stretches of time while the magic effects were being manipulated on set. She was instructed not to lower her arms until the director said "cut," before relaxing and continuing with the scene. This relentless, awkward torture became a type of arm workout for Montgomery. It required steady control and endurance for her to make Samantha's magical gestures appear even remotely fluid and believable on screen. The mysterious theme song. The renowned theme song for Bewitched is well known, but few realize it does have lyrics that were never sung during the beginning credits of the show. One line states, "You've got me under your spell," perfectly capturing the show's enchanting nature. Those lyrics were eventually cut before the broadcast of the show, leaving only the instantly recognized instrumental tune. The lyrics add a further twist to the theme by presenting it romantically, matching the magical and whimsical character of the show perfectly. Darren's viewpoint. The theme tune of Bewitched was never heard during the show, but has lyrics supposedly written by Darren Stevens's point of view. That is, they express a man who is aware that his wife, Samantha, is a witch and enchanted by her magical abilities, or it could more broadly be described as the way any man would feel when under the complete spell of the woman he loves, making the theme song somewhat interesting. It reflects on Darren's amazement and adoration for Samantha in terms of the powers she holds. Elizabeth Montgomery's Obituary mistakes. Elizabeth Montgomery was notoriously reticent and guarded all details about her personal life, including her age and marriages. Most obituaries incorrectly stated that Montgomery was 57 years old at the time of her death, when in fact she was in reality 62. Since she did not disclose information about her marriage to Robert Foxworth, some obituaries mistakenly reported her as single at the time of her death. This careful control over her private matters had led to a good deal of inaccuracy in reporting her life in the aftermath of her death. Death certificate inconsistencies. Even errors in Elizabeth Montgomery's death certificate revealed to some extent the secrecy with which she maintained her personal details throughout her life. Though her death certificate listed her middle name as Anne, in reality, it was Victoria. With these discrepancies, Montgomery displays her extreme desire to protect her identity, where even official documents are unable to account for the truth about her. The errors on the certificate may appear puzzling to the fans who are well aware of Montgomery's true name. They, however, point toward the actress's wish to keep much of her private life away from public scrutiny. Drunk on set. By the 60s, alcohol consumption in shows like Bewitched was more casually accepted than it is today. Drinking on the set was allowed then, although this was long ago enough in the memory of Hollywood unions that any kind of drinking would be strictly prohibited there today. Actors were often told to drink iced tea instead of the real thing. Nevertheless, Wilson, a recurring actor on set, often played drunk characters, an especially ironic mixture of life-imitating art that has often been tolerated back then, though much less so nowadays. Bewitched's heavy smoking and drinking. There has been a lot of speculation about the drinking and smoking habits of some cast members of Bewitched, a scenario that was very common in Hollywood some years ago. It's said Dick York smoked an average of 3 packs of cigarettes a day. Elizabeth Montgomery was also said to be a chain smoker. Despite the numerous health hazards associated with smoking, it was glorified both on and off screen. Popular actors could often be seen lighting up in between their shots. Though these habits are reflective of their times, they may well have contributed to the ill health of some of the cast in later years. The cast's off-screen habits hint at hidden struggles, but the real magic lies in a curious coincidence you won't want to miss. Coincidental birthdays. In fact, such an interesting coincidence in the realm of Bewitched is that Elizabeth Montgomery gave birth to her real daughter, Rebecca Asher, on June 17th, which is the same date as that of the twin actresses Erin and Diane Murphy, who played Tabitha in the show. Pure coincidence or some kind of magic, this shared birthday gives a really lovely twist to the connection between the actress and the children who played her on-screen daughter. Rebecca Asher made her own career by working on films like Donnie Darko and Anchorman and keeping the family torch lit in the entertainment world. Magic in recycling. The Bewitched actually indoor the house that was made first for the Gidget, and further, the entire house was copied and mirrored to be used for the family's now famous Stevens home. All patios and the interior living rooms form part of the common practice by studios with small budgets. It was capturing the familiar magic of the fairy tale, saving costs and action pictures while recycling such sets. That equips all possible creations with familiar and magical environments, which fans identify with the Netflix series. This behind-the-scenes practicality contributes to the charming, warm atmosphere of Samantha and Darren's home, which was at the core of much of the show's charm. Gladys's shared neighborhood. There was a lot for decades in the neighborhood called Blondie Street, named after the classic serial movie Blondie and Dagwood Bumstead. While Bewitched was being aired, this same lot had as its set the home of jealous neighbor Gladys Kravitz of Samantha and Darren. Coincidentally, that same house was used for the Partridge Family, meaning both iconic families shared the same neighborhood on screen. Such a recycling of the set created a familiar backdrop that seemed to tie those beloved television shows together across time and genre. Gladys Kravitz and the Partridge Family. The white picket-fenced, very modest two-story structure used for Gladys Kravitz on Bewitched was on the famed Blondie Street lot. This same structure would soon become home to the Partridge Family when their show debuted late in Bewitched's run. Over the years, the fence came down, and the original windows in front of the house were replaced with bay windows, thus changing the house's appearance. The close proximity of these two iconic television families added an interesting dimension to TV history for the set that links two much-loved series most unusually. Twins share the role. That role was performed on Bewitched by the daughters of Tabitha, Samantha, and Darren, Erin and Diane Murphy, twin sisters. Casting twins in the particular role was a wise production decision, especially in the case of child actors, since it enables young performers to share working hours and to conform to the child labor law. The fact that one twin may have received slightly more credit than the other, perhaps due to personality differences, did not matter since both received equal credit for the dual role. This twin casting method is still a great practice in the business, since it helps keep the fight for well-being with the well-being of these young performers. Tabitha's natural star. Although both twins, there is one sister who was said to be more favored by the way she had a different personality and talent in acting. The production has made sure that both Aaron and Diane Murphy have equal shares in all credits for their work. Their talent helped bring life to the Tabitha character as a delightful, magic-filled character, making her an unforgettable component of the show, thereby showing the advantages of casting twins in child roles. Bewitched versus Jeannie. The debut of I Dream of Jeannie on NBC in 1965 provided one more good reason for comparisons with its counterpart on ABC called Bewitched. About the rivalry that, in truth, somewhat agitated Elizabeth Montgomery, both series featured a blonde who occasionally exercised magical powers, but did so quite differently. Jeannie morphed between a 2,000-year-old genie in romantic love with an astronaut from NASA, while Bewitched presented the case of a suburban witch with a decidedly mortal husband. Blurred lines for the casual viewer notwithstanding, The Witches' War soon became more of a celebration than a competition for the two endearingly charming shows, providing magical vibes and laughter to the viewing audience. Elizabeth Montgomery's timeless glow. Elizabeth Montgomery had that eternal beauty, which kept her looking very young, even in her old age. In fact, it was joked by fans that she must be under the evocation of some kind of anti-aging spell. The truth, however, is probably less fantastical, as Montgomery regularly exercised and ate properly. Normally, she looks just fine, but she has some privately undisclosed health problems that were kept behind the public eye. The way she has been able to look so active is a testament to her efforts in self-care, and not magical spells. Marsha Wallace's legacy. Marsha Wallace, who played Darren Stevens's secretary on Bewitched, later voiced the character Edna Crabapple in The Simpsons. She also played Bob Newhart's assistant on The Bob Newhart Show back in the 1970s. Upon her death, her role on The Simpsons was retired in her honor. Wallace's career highlights depict her versatility as an actress through a course that crossed live action and voice work, deeply branding the television landscape beyond Bewitched. The show's iconic faces came with stories you've never heard, including a near miss that could have changed everything. Elizabeth nearly lost the role. Sol Sachs, the man behind Bewitched, was thinking at first that he wanted actress Tammy Grimes to play the lead witch, who was originally destined to be called Cassandra. The actress Grimes somehow had that natural elfish look that seemed ideal for the part. The only problem was a conflict with screen gems, so the part never quite belonged to her. Ultimately, although it was cast with Elizabeth Montgomery as Samantha for what would later be characterized as an iconic performance, one digs hard to find any such possibilities for imagining another actor in that role, especially one who really did not fit that early definition of elfish, but who instead cast a charm or depth that defined the whole show very much. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed uncovering the secrets behind Bewitched, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more amazing stories. Be sure to check out the next video right here on your screen. You won't want to miss what's coming next.